Welcome to the MiddleEasy Fight Fish podcast.
Yeah.
Ba, 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 ba. Bang, bang.
So this is the first one.
This is a pilot episode.
Probably only a few. But so I feel like we should just introduce ourselves to talk about who we are on this podcast.
You want to lead it off?
Well, I'll lead it off with Austin because he has the easiest one. He has no credits.
I'm sorry. I have the best credits. Okay, I'm Austin.
Basically,
What's
Austin
up?
Lock. At Locked Up or some shit on Twitter.
At Austin Locked Up. Check it out.
No, we shouldn't do plugs already.
We should not.
Austin.
You already plugged your burritos and your chlamydia. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but
that's gonna stay in.
that could be cut. We've done the official start now.
That's true.
I
Okay.
think
So we're
this is probably going to be one of few episodes Austin is visible on.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
He
I know. I'm sorry,
is
guys.
He is an 18-year-old stand-up comedian
I'm
from
19
Los
now,
Angeles.
Actually.
He's 19 now. Apparently his
19 now,
birthday happened
yeah.
in the past
It
week.
did.
and
That was the
You-
most
you texted
18-year-old
me.
thing I've ever seen. To go, I'm 19
Yeah.
now.
I'm actually
I'm a
19.
big boy now.
I live.
Well,
I'm sorry.
you
Who
do.
here doesn't live in their parents' house? Can we just get a raise of?
Oh, I do. Sorry.
Oh, wow.
I said doesn't live with their parents.
It doesn't count. You're in a dorm room of a college. If you ever realized, we were in the dorm room of NYU.
We're in my dorm
Yeah.
room. I live here.
This is sponsored by NYU, so if
Yeah.
anyone wants to.
Don't put NYU.
Don't
Wait,
hold them
this
to
is
that.
No,
Pace
it's not.
University, 100%.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
don't get me in
This is
trouble.
the closest I've gotten to being accepted into a prestigious university. This is now
That's
on my
funny.
resume. Once did a podcast at NYU. But yes, Austin is a 18 or 19-year-old, whatever he is, student at NYU.
He does that.
He is also a stand-up comedian from Los Angeles who lives here now in New York City. And he is our third mic guy and tech bitch.
guru. It's tech guru / side bitch. We talked about
2 out
this.
of 3 decided on tech bitch. You want tech
Yeah.
guru / side bitch?
Tech guru / side bitch. That's my official title.
I'm
That's
not
fine.
putting slash. You're just going to be the tech side bitch.
Tech side bitch. No, because
Austin
that
is-
implies there's a main tech guy. I'm the tech guru, but
He's
I'm
not
also
the
the
main
side
tech
bitch.
guy. He's the only tech guy.
Yeah, so therefore the main tech guy.
He's getting an unpaid internship at the New York University. Go Fighting Purple.
I want to correct you, but I don't even know what our mascot is, so it doesn't
I
even.
don't know what it is
Yeah.
either. And
we-
that's the gist of
Are
what
we,
Austin is.
are we giving
Maybe-
real credits or are we giving like bullshit credits? Because
What else have you done? You're a
I've been
comic?
on SiriusXM a few times.
Oh, he's been on
He's been on
SiriusXM,
SiriusXM.
a paid radio service that I assume most
Yeah.
of my followers can't afford. And
I
then,
know.
okay, Luke, you can introduce yourself.
Wait, he gets to fuck you. Okay, I wanted him to. Never mind, go.
What did you want me to do?
No, I thought we were going to introduce each other. It was going to be like a circular. Never mind, you go.
No, because we have real things to talk
Oh, we have. Okay, yeah, big boy stuff.
big boy stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, what's gonna happen when we start talking about MMA? Austin's just gonna be like,
I'm gonna melt it away in the background.
found this sick new SoundCloud rappers. No, my name is Luke Tuma. I'm from Buffalo, New York. I started doing comedy in Boston. I've also been on SiriusXM. I live here in New York now. I run a weekly show at Lucky Jack's. It's called Too Many Cooks. Probably should have
Formerly
put that at
Gandhi,
the
is
end.
that you?
Formerly Gandhi, is that you? And yeah,
Wasn't
bartender, MMA fan, comedy enthusiast.
All the right things.
Yeah,
for this
definitely.
podcast.
But
This is this comedy mixed martial arts podcast,
Yeah.
which will probably hinder more to the comedy side. All right, we're gonna let that fall flat. Good.
You think you deserve a laugh on that? I can add the laugh track afterwards if you
Yeah,
want. Should we do
alright.
that like a sitcom-y laugh track whenever Dan tells a joke?
That'd be great. Just
I'm actually gonna do that. Like whenever Dan tells a bad joke, though, just
yeah.
like the.
This is the MiddleEasy Fight Fist / Mulaney podcast of papered in laughter. We'll take that out. I like Mulaney.
was that a burn?
No,
I didn't
that
get
was
that.
a dig at his sitcom that didn't go well.
Oh, that was a bad
It's
sitcom.
had a lot of
but
laughs in there. I mean, stand-up wise, he's great.
no, stand-up is
I am Dan Lamort. I live in Manalapan, New Jersey. I'm 22 years old. I am a comedian and a former college baseball player. Clearly, that
extremely
doesn't-
former.
Extremely former.
Very former.
Yeah, only 3 years removed, but 300 pounds heavier. And where do I work? I work at the Comedy Cellar in New York. I've been on Gotham Comedy Live, Fox's Red Eye, Stay to My Republican Ways. Just kidding, I'm a liberal. Thanks, guys.
We just lost all our followers.
Yeah,
by the way. Like
fans, they're not
all
followers.
fans.
I said because a lot of podcasts name their fans, and we have the easiest ones. We haven't even said the name of the podcast.
yeah, this is the MiddleEasy Fight Fist podcast, everybody.
Which means all of our fans are going to be called Fisters.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, eventually when we can afford merch, there will be fisting shirts, and you could wear them to live shows when you come and support us.
I fist.
I fist with Dan and
Yeah,
Luke.
we'll just have giant foam fingers.
Is my
fists
name
that
even
everybody can
like
wear.
in the
You're on the back of the
shirt? Am I not
shirt.
even?
He's on the back of the shirt, and also
And also
Austin.
the tech bitch, tech guru side bitch. Sorry, I fucked it up.
Tech,
Too.
So, yeah,
tech
essentially-
guru / fist bitch.
I don't even know.
Fist bitch. Yeah, you're the fist bitch. Oh man, we're gonna have I feel like already we're gonna have a very male-oriented fan base.
Yeah.
I can't see women getting into
don't you
this.
already have like a male? Like, do women?
Oh.
Follow you? Do you know women? Do you talk to?
That
besides
was the most
Tinder?
insulting question I've ever seen.
It also wasn't the most false question.
No, 'cause I've seen it. He showed
Because
me
the
it's like
majority of my analytics on social media
Mainly
is
men.
about 80% men.
Yeah, whatever.
So this is basically MiddleEasy has been covering mixed martial arts since 2009. They're a website. Check them out on Twitter and all that. And they gave us the rights to their name to use for the podcast,
Very nice.
which
of
I
them.
feel like by now already they're regretting.
But we've lost everything.
Yeah, I would say in 4 weeks we're just going to be the Fight Fist podcast.
Listen, as long as we still got our fisters.
Yep. We're talking as if there's actually going to be people listening to this.
Keep fisting gang.
And yeah, so the way I got introduced to MiddleEasy, when comedy wasn't like when I wasn't working as much, I was dabbled in sports journalism, which is a strong word for what I wrote about. And I tried doing it. I did 2 articles for MiddleEasy called "Fat to Fit to Fighter," where I was going from fat, and then I was training with a professional Muay Thai team to get fit, and then I was going to become a fighter. But it was really just fat to
fighter. 'Cause
Fat-
I've seen you fight.
fat to fighter to bigger failure. That was kind of what happened. But I wrote 2 articles for them, and I was training with a Muay Thai team in New Jersey of amateur and professional fighters. And I would have stayed with it, and then I got into a car accident and backed out. But it was half that and half not enjoying getting hit in the face that much.
How did you end up writing 2 articles?
Because I trained for a little while. So after every 2 weeks of training, I'd write an article.
Okay, so
So if you could do
updated.
math, I
posted?
did a month of training.
I
Yeah, it was on their
thought-
website. It's still on their
I
website.
thought there was like a failed attempt, and then you tried it again. I thought you got like halfway to fit, and then you were like, all right, let's start over from fat.
I knew what the situation was, so I was just doing every 2-week updates because it would have been one other update. It would just be I quit. That would have been the whole
That
article.
would have been funny if that was like.
Yeah, but
Super
it's
slow
funny.
progress.
The way I got into the Muay Thai team in New Jersey is when I was in high school. I dated a girl for 2 years. It was like my first real girlfriend, and her ex-boyfriend hated me. This kid named Frank. We're good friends now. He hated me, and like he always wanted to fight me, and I was always a big kid, so I was like, oh, I should fight him, but we never did.
Yeah.
And then you fast forward to now, he's a professional Muay Thai fighter,
Really?
and he brought me onto his team, and he trained me. Like I worked with him one-on-one.
Is it because he wanted to kick your ass like every
Like he
day?
trained
Like,
you
why did
to
he-
fight him?
No. He just trained me to fight as a whole. He was part of the team that I was training with called the Institute Muay Thai in Keensburg, New Jersey.
So you first got into MMA because you wanted to fight that guy?
I had no interest in fighting him. I just heard he become a fighter. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, man, I know we had beef in the past, but I want to train. And it turns out he's like a comedy fan and he was into just,
If I was
hanging
him, I
out
would
and
have been
shit.
so worried that it was just a conspiracy.
oh, he shouldn't have. This kid's a sick fighter. He would have kicked me right in the
I would've been
face.
so think about it. Like this guy who stole your girl, like hits you up 5 years later.
I
like,
did
a
not
professional
steal
fighter.
anything.
Yeah. Can you
She
teach
left
me
him
all
when they
your
were like
abilities?
So, like, it's
13.
an excuse to like beat the fuck out of him.
Yeah, there was like, if they were like 13 and then I swooped in at the sweet age of 14
Damn.
and
look at you.
got that.
Always for the
I'm
younger
going to
women.
censor myself there because that's young people.
That's where you censor yourself.
Yeah, that's where.
That's the line.
Yeah.
right.
So he was 19 when he was dating her when she was 13. I was 20. No, I'm kidding.
I was gonna
She's still in high school.
This whole story is
Yeah.
about Austin.
This is
by the
actually
way.
her
It's,
graduation present.
And sponsorships again.
Yeah. Well, we don't have sponsorships.
Never mind.
We are sponsored by Plastic Cup Water.
And table. We're big table people.
Well, way to go, Austin. Talk about a table. That's when things go south.
Perfect. So let's explain what the
Yeah.
podcast is. This is for MiddleEasy, like he said. We're going to be putting it out every week. It's going to be on YouTube as well as iTunes, SoundCloud, Libsyn,
And-
whatever else there
Yeah,
is.
those are the ones that we know.
The big ones.
There might be, and
Yeah.
one of, I'm not gonna. It's an app. An app
Now
said
that
they
you
want
said
to
it
put
that
us
we're
on
doing it
there.
every week, we're like committing to like this is like tapes
No, we
now.
need to put it out. This
No,
week.
once a week. Yeah, this will be at least once a week, and then I mean, along the line, we'll do the bonus episodes and Patreon and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But that's down the road. But yeah, it's gonna be
Starters
free
once a week.
episode once a week. It's gonna basically be interviews to an extent.
Yeah.
with comedians and UFC fighters. We have a few fighters lined up. Hopefully it all works out for the next few weeks.
This is just our intro episode, so we're not going to be fucking around this much each week.
Yeah, well, if it's comedian as a guest, we'll fuck around. But if it's a UFC fighter, I probably won't push their buttons that much.
Yeah, no.
This is a small room, and there's a lot
of throwable items in.
It's very hard for me to run as a whole.
We're not going to be sitting with Frankie Edgar like, hey, man, are you a fister? Or what
Frankie the Fister Edgar. That's actually the whole point of this podcast, is to get a UFC fighter to change their nickname to the Fister.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then basically, I guess when we have the UFC fighters on, it'll be a little different of a format than comedians. But when we bring on other comedians, we're going to talk to them about the first time they ever got into a fight or like their favorite fight that they've been in, which is a pretty rare demographic because most comedians do not fight.
Yeah, no.
But so we have about 3 guests lined up, and that's going to be it.
And then it's
We have 3
comedians, we're
guests.
going to be
Wow,
hanging
good for
out.
us. Look
Yeah.
at you guys. We have 3 to be proud of. Like, I didn't know that.
And we're all going to be talking.
Is it us? Is it me, you, and him? Is that the?
Yeah, I'm already regretting keeping Austin on this. He should stay as the tech side bitch.
Yeah.
We'll
I'll
be
edit myself
keeping you
in.
guys, talking about recent events in MMA, stuff like that, keeping you up to date if you're not following, giving some takes and shit like that. We'll do that at the end, probably.
Yeah,
of
the end
podcast
of so
here,
basically because we come from, I would say the majority of my fan base on Twitter is definitely comedy fans,
Yeah.
opposed to MMA fans. So it does have to be a balance of both. Hopefully we could integrate both worlds together. They seem to go together pretty damn well, to be honest.
Comedy and MMA.
Yeah, I
There's
mean
a
a
lot
few
of-
comics have figured out how to hit both markets.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So happy Thanksgiving, and that gets into. Should we do what? Should we talk about? Like, I have this one
What
story.
Did you write on the paper?
It's notes.
it?
Don't break the fourth wall. They don't need to see it.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
No, tell the story. You were,
This is, I guess, for the comedy side of things. So on Thanksgiving, I worked. I did shows at the Comedy Cellar, and there was 5 shows that night. I did the 8 o'clock and the 12 o'clock. I had time to kill in the middle, so I went to the 10 o'clock show to watch my buddy Seaton host. And
Yeah.
Seaton's up there. When you host at the Cellar, you do 15 minutes as a host. He gets the light at 5. The light means he has to get off stage. So I figured something was up. So then Dave Chappelle walks downstairs.
Jesus.
He goes on stage. Mind you, it's sold out, 140 people, 6 other comics on the show. He goes up first. He is killing so hard that he goes, you know what? I'm having a private party. Let's go. And he left the club and took all 140 audience members with him to his private party.
Are you kidding?
Not at all.
You just swept up. What did the rest of the comics were just like, oh, show's over?
Yeah, the show was over. There was no other. All the audience went to Dave Chappelle's party. It was the most insane thing I had seen in my life.
That's so cool, though.
Because there's not a single club in the city that has their shit together as well as the Cellar.
Yeah.
And even for them, this was like, well, this is new.
Yeah. Were
That
they?
he just
were they
walked the
pissed, or
entire
were they-
room to his. I don't know if they were pissed. I mean, he's already been back there since he was there.
Yeah.
He was there on Sunday.
That's so badass.
Is that like the first? I bet that's the first time anything like that's happened.
It has to be,
Yeah.
unless he's done it at other places. He's one of the few guys that has the power. Like, if I was ever on stage at the Cellar and was like, guys, I'm having a private party, let's go, I would need all of them to chip in their money for the private party.
Think about how hard you have to be killing to go, let's just do this at my place. Right?
Yeah.
It's fucking insane.
Yeah, and he just, there were 6 other people on the show, and they were like, well, we're pretty confident we saw what we needed to. We're going to go drink with Dave
Yeah.
Chappelle.
I saw he was there with John Mayer for a night at the
Yeah,
Cellar
him and
for
John
the
Mayer
radio.
are friends. I one time went to a Dave Chappelle after party
Really?
when he did the Radio City run. And it was at a place in the Lower East Side called The Box, which is
Yeah.
one of like the most high-end clubs in New York City.
Yeah.
And there's like a strict suit and tie dress code, but they knew comics were coming, so they didn't enforce it. So me and my buddy are walking in. We get past security, and to the right of me is Questlove from The Roots.
Yeah.
And we're walking in the front door, and the woman goes, sir, excuse me? Are you on the list? And he just turns around and he goes, I'm fucking Questlove. And she literally goes, I don't see any cues on the page. And then the one guy goes, he's in The Roots, let him in. And I left shortly after that because that was the only story I needed from the Chappelle party.
I love that the comedians were just like, the way they dressed was like a scarlet letter. Like, you knew who the comics
Yeah,
was. Like, they were
yeah.
just
We
the
didn't
ones
need to
dressed
be on the
like
list. They were like, oh, this guy shouldn't even be on the street right now, but he's clearly a comic.
Like a homeless guy could have gotten in as a comic.
Yeah,
They would have just
easy.
assumed, oh, he's a comedian.
Yeah,
let him
but
in.
since Questlove, who was looking dapper, walked in there, like, we got to check if this guy's on the list.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I guess what the moral of the story is, if
Go
you're in
to
the
a club.
Roots,
Yeah, or go to a
Doesn't
club
help.
dressed like shit.
yeah,
Yeah.
dressed like shit,
You'll get
You'll
in as a
it,
comedian.
definitely.
or just
Questlove, because he's the Fallon guy. Backstage of Fallon, they have like a bunch of bow ties for him, like a huge like sheet like of bow ties of like hundreds of I'm gonna stop talking. Hi, I'm the tech guy. I'll edit myself out.
Can you?
Bow ties.
He thought that was like a good jumping off
That's
point.
not, no, that's not a joke. I'm being
He
dead
told
serious.
this amazing Questlove story. He goes, you know they have a
I'm
giant
being
stack
dead-
of
that's
bow
a cool
ties
thing.
backstage at the
who has,
Fallon
like,
show.
No, but they're cool bow ties. It's
Yeah,
like,
and
like
when
a
he
bow
went
tie,
into the
and
club,
there's,
he didn't
like-
even have his ID. He just had a bow tie. It was like, I'm Questlove. Can't you see by my bow tie? Oh, well,
Oh, my
this is why some people are tech and some people are on camera.
It's okay.
Listen, it's gonna get better. Don't worry about it.
I have Austin. We'll just jump right into this because the whole point of the podcast is to talk about fights that we have been in for our guests. Austin, if you can tell, hasn't really been in a fight.
So if you want to fight me, come out and we'll talk about it on the podcast.
Come to the NYU dorms where they don't know we are illegally recording a podcast.
Yeah, that's. You're welcome.
Austin gets in some
Some
Twitter
NYU
fights.
dorms
though.
where no one's fought ever.
Yeah, they just act out fights. But Luke, have you been in a
I've been
fight?
in a fight. I've been in a couple. I'm like clearly not a big fighter.
Yeah.
But I was gonna tell. I can tell a funny little fight story.
Let's
that,
go for it.
It more. Just
We need some
like,
humor on this right now after that bow tie riff.
Yeah, I got in a fight with Austin. He just kept talking about bow ties and I beat the show. No.
Subscribe to the Patreon. Luke versus Austin is on the page.
Yeah, that's gonna be a bonus episode.
Can we
Yeah.
please, like, if we get enough fault, that'd be fun.
We just fought each
Yeah,
other.
I've
let's
never
say we
heard
have
someone
enough-
go, "You want to fight? It'd be
No,
fun."
like, casually though, you know, like.
Yeah, just a
chill,
casual. Yeah, just roll around on the ground a bit. That's what
like-
Austin's
yeah,
trying to
that's
say.
exactly what I'm.
If we like get a fan base for this podcast and we have that as a bonus episode, we're gonna lose all of them. Be like, no, I'm out. Like, that's the least
Yeah,
entertaining
he's a
thing
minor. You
ever.
can't fight a minor.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it'd be like a 5-second fight. I would just like.
Given the times we're in, it's not a good look.
Well,
For me
did
to be
you get
rolling
into a
around
f-
on the ground with you, Austin?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Did you get into a fight in Buffalo or in New York?
No,
That's
I
well, that's
haven't.
both New York. That shows how dumb I am. Buffalo is in New York.
I haven't been in any fights in New York. I haven't lived here for that long. I got in one in Buffalo with, but this I think is a good, like, description of me as a fighter. So like I fought a couple times, but I'm more like growing up was like shit talky,
Oh,
had
yeah.
big friends,
Yep,
you know,
the way to go.
nice and bodyguarded up. But we were on this. There's this beach like south of Buffalo, and there's this disgusting beach
Wait,
bar.
there's beaches in Buffalo?
Oh, they're gross, dude. Yeah,
I had
it's
no
just-
idea.
Yeah, it's just like oil and like
It's just oil.
yeah, the water is just everybody's tears. It's but we no, there's this beach in Buffalo. There's this gross beach bar on the beach called Mickey Rats. which,
Mickey Rats.
Perfect name for a gross Buffalo beach bar. And I was trying to drink there with a fake ID, and the bouncer was gigantic. And
Was it Mickey or the rat?
He was way farther to rat
Oh,
than
okay.
Mickey.
Way
but,
further to rat.
I'll insert
He-
the laugh track right there.
Yeah, please.
He took my fake ID and he wouldn't give it back, and he's like, "This is fake." And I was like, "I won't drink here, but can you give it back?" And he was just like, "No, I'm gonna keep it," which I thought was a dick move.
A little bit.
So yeah, so I started just being like, "Fuck you! This is just your whole life is just standing."
And this
on
was the bouncer.
Yeah.
So naturally, probably a big man.
Oh, gigantic.
All
And
right.
it was to the point where like my friends who would usually have defended me just looked at him and were like, "No, I'm not. Dude.
Yeah.
Nah, you're on your own here." And so the bar owned a certain space on the beach, like they owned a certain chunk of the beach. And I remember him, he dragged me across the entire beach, and like you could see where there were like markers for where the property ended. And he just like picked me up and threw me over to their
Oh,
like
wow.
off their property. So it was like getting thrown out of a bar, but I got like thrown off of a beach.
He literally Uncle Phil'd you.
Yeah, I've gotten Uncle Phil'd by him. I got Uncle Phil'd by a bouncer at a concert in Buffalo one time, but it was in the winter and like the coldest time in Buffalo. Like it was like middle of March, like -10 degrees, and I got thrown into a snowbank by a bouncer
Oh,
with
no,
a
that's
face
the worst
tattoo.
getting into snow. So
Oh,
you were the
it's terrible.
Fresh Prince of Buffalo. Boom.
Yeah.
Pun podcast.
Laugh track, bro. Don't
Laugh
worry.
track.
That joke is killed in
Yeah.
the final cut.
Yeah, it was DJ
So you-
Jazzy Fist.
So you don't fight often, but you pick your fights with bouncers.
I'm more, just much less than fighting. It's more just like talk shit until I get thrown.
Interesting.
Was there a fight before the throw? Or did he just like pick you up and was like, bye?
No, it was.
That's more of a power move if there wasn't a fight. If he was
Yeah,
just
he's
like,
like,
I'm not going to hit you,
like,
but I'm
I
just
might
going to
have
pick
shoved
you
him,
up.
but
Alright.
no. I've had a couple fights in like gym class and shit growing up.
So you don't pick wisely. I pick wisely. I make sure it's someone that I think I could beat up.
Everybody you fight looks like Austin.
Yeah.
No, it's shorter. Austin's still got he's still got the reach on me.
You're like, I don't even want to risk it.
Yeah, I don't want to risk it. I don't know
By
what
the
he's.
time Dan gets to my body, he's out of breath. So.
Yeah, there we go. Boom,
Yeah.
fat jokes.
Yeah.
This is going to be a lot of them on this podcast, folks. Just wait till I'm fit to fighter or just fit to podcaster. So should I go into my one or are we going to
go
riff
for
on?
it.
Let's hear it.
Which one should I share? Well, I would. I don't know if I ever got. I mean, I got in a few fights in like where I'm from in Jersey. It's kind of just like the way you solved your problem was you fought someone. That's how you buried it, kind of.
Yeah.
But I wasn't that much of a fighter until I think I started doing comedy in the city. For some reason, it gave me this false sense of I could beat people up.
Yeah.
And again, I pick wisely, so sometimes it works. The one that sticks out to me, I think it was about a year ago, I was at a bar show on McDougal Street called the Grizzly Pear about a year ago. And before I was in the cellar, just to clarify that, and just to not get in trouble. And I was on stage, and for the listeners, the Grizzly Pear is very much, it's one of my favorite bars in the world, but there is absolutely no security in the showroom. Because they have the bar, and then they have the showroom in the back where the comedy happens. No security in there. If you want someone out, you have to get them out yourself. So I'm on stage. I'm having a miserable set, I assume. And this dude is just heckling me nonstop.
Yeah.
And I shut it down, but I realize he's kind of a little bit tipsy, so he's not going to stop. And then it gets to the point where he's heckling me so bad that he puts his chair on stage and sits next to me. So I was like, I either could just deal with it or I could literally just kick him off the stage.
It's a pretty funny move.
It's a ballsy move.
To just move his seat to as close as
Yeah.
possible to the comedian.
Yeah, he's like,
Was he facing you or was he facing away?
It was as if he was facing the people like I was.
Okay.
It's like he was facing the crowd.
That's
So he turned into like my little drunk ventriloquist puppet.
Yeah, he like made
was
himself
right
like an
there.
American Idol panelist.
Yeah, and I didn't kick him. I didn't. I let him go, and then I said, if you want to talk about this like a man, come up to me after. And I overreacted because I was walking out of the room, and he came up from behind me and put his hand on my shoulder, which to me, I guess I was just so angry that I took it as a sign of aggression, and I just turned around and I palmed his face and then just crushed it into the wall, and he fell down like right away. And then I picked him up by his neck, and I was like, do you guys want him in here? And they're like, no, we kind of want him to go, but we couldn't get him out. So I was like, do you mind if I bounce him? They're like, yeah, sure. So then I just threw him out. And when I threw him out of the door, all he said was, dude, I was trying to apologize. I was like, shit, man. I just hit this kid's head real hard, and he was just trying to say sorry.
Wow.
But then after that, I just decided that I would be like the enforcer of McDougal Street and just insert myself into people's fights, which is always fun.
Just getting in random fights.
Not
in the village.
even, I try to break them up. But more times than not, it's very impossible to break up a Greenwich Village fight because everyone has their mindset that they're going to hit someone. I had a writing meeting one time at a diner, and I saw these two guys picking on this one smaller dude outside. And by picking on them, I mean like they were hitting him pretty hard. So I went out there and I like got in the way. I was like, dude, come on, he's smaller than you. Just let it be. And the one guy just cocked back and hooked me in the face.
Yeah.
And I just turned around to the little kid. I was like, dude, you're on your own. I was like, that was a pretty solid punch. I can't take any more of those.
You judge that, you're like, this is.
Yeah, I was a social justice warrior for one
like,
punch.
This whole Batman thing I'm doing is
Yeah.
I'm taking the costume
It was like a barometer punch. I was like, you know what? That's pretty high on the meter. I'm not going to take a second.
That would be a good way for people to like solve their problems, like give each other a barometer punch, like a fair.
100%. I think if more people got hit in the face, they'd realize they're not invincible.
Yeah, and it would be a good way to be like, let's let each other know where we're at, see if either people.
Yeah, you get to see who's more angry, who hits you harder.
Absolutely.
I think because like I remember the first time I got kicked in the face, I was like, wow, I have to change my entire life. I have to stop living the way I am.
Were you was it like a straight up like head kick, or were you on the ground?
It was a head kick, which made it worse. The guy like crane kicked me. He didn't do the whole whoa. He just did a little kick in the face.
That's great. I've seen those like videos where, because at first when you said that, I thought it was like a soccer kick, like when someone.
No, that would be worse, like a little curb stomp action.
That shit's awful.
Yeah, curb stomp is the national flag of New Jersey.
Oh man. But,
So yeah, that's about the most. I mean, I think as the podcast goes on, if we get into fights, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But there's a reason we're bringing on professional fighters.
Yeah, we'll
because
do that.
we are very far away from professionals. We're barely professional comedians. Yet alone a
something-
professional fighter.
And Austin's certainly not a professional.
No.
Fist
And I
bump.
also want to give a
I'm a
huge
huge
shout out
fist
before Austin says something again. I want to give a huge shout out to Rose Namajunas. I don't know her, and I'm not friends with her, but I placed a lot of money on her when she fought Joanna, and that is how we bought all of the podcast equipment.
Oh yeah, this is sponsored
yeah.
by Thug Rose.
Yeah, so Thug Rose was the pure and only reason why this podcast is happening.
Dude, that fight was she was so badass.
So if you hate this podcast, like hit her up on Twitter and blame her for it.
Probably don't because she's kind of tough.
Yeah, dude.
That was sick.
Dude, you knew she was gonna win. Like at least you could feel that she was gonna win it, man.
I
She had
convinced
that-
myself I was feeling I was going to win it because I put down hundreds of dollars on her.
Yeah.
So I convinced myself she was going to win, but I kind of, because it was that classic thing where Joanna was bullying her leading up to the fight.
Dude.
And like calling out things that like some people thought you shouldn't have called out about Rose.
Yeah.
And Rose just came in and just, I don't know statistically, but Joanna might have never gone to the ground willingly. So for her to get knocked down was insane.
Dude, there's nothing more like confident than that stoic kind of just like robotic look that Thug Rose had in
Dude,
her face.
Rose reminds me so much of a robot.
Yeah, it was insane. Remember when she was saying the Lord's Prayer?
Yeah.
In the face off.
Yeah.
In the weigh-in, it was
And
insane.
and then after the fight, she's just like, I think we could be a better place as a world. She just gave like really nice words.
yeah, I thought she was gonna be like summoned by a demon, like.
Yeah.
This is the last.
I
thing
literally think
expected.
she said that like trash talk shouldn't happen in fighting. Like you could fight without trashing the other person.
I mean, I like trash talk, but
She has like a great message.
Yeah, it reminded me so much of the Rousey Holm fight, where
Oh,
like
yeah.
Rousey was just so in Holly Holm's face, and Holly Holm was so measured and like cool, calm, and collected. It was very reminiscent of that.
There's something so funny about like you have this beautiful message to share with the world, and the time you get to share it is after you knock out somebody else. It's like, listen, I know I just beat the shit out of that girl.
Yeah.
But I have a really nice thing to say about the world.
Knock someone out, go, you just be a
Yeah.
good person.
Stop talking trash. Just hit him, knock him out, and then talk to Joe Rogan on camera.
Do you like it better when there's a lot of trash talk between the fighters, or do you like it when it's a super like mutual respect type of relationship between the two opponents?
I'll split it in the middle. I like when they trash talk, and then by the end, they just hug each other.
Dude, that's the best. Like
Yeah.
at the end of the Cruz Garbrandt.
Because at the end of the
fight,
day,
that
it
was
is just
amazing.
work for them, so they're able to just put it out.
Yeah, and you can relate to it as like just a guy in life, where like if you have a beef with a guy and then you fight it out, you kind of it's squashed after that. At least like a lot of
I think that's how you become closer to someone.
yeah,
Because whether you win or lose, you pick the other guy up, and now you go and get a beer.
yeah. I mean, it's very like there's something you relate to in it when you watch.
That's
them
what I'm interested for this podcast, to talk to fighters, to wonder if they go and get a drink after their fights.
with with the people their opponents.
Not even that, just get a drink as a whole.
They
I feel
just-
like if you fight someone, you got to have a beer after or something.
How many do you think a lot of fighters are sober? Like I would think.
I don't know. I know a few that I won't call out by name that I've been at bars with who
Yeah.
are not sober.
I mean, Bisping definitely. Bisping was drinking a beer after the Rockhold fight. Like he had,
Yeah.
remember he had that beer at the press conference, and
Bis-
he's going, "Luke, sorry."
Bisping is just an animal. I mean,
Bisping's a beast, dude.
R.I.P. to his brain.
Yeah,
but
that was.
all right, do you know Bisping? All right, so
I love how I shut up when like the actual podcast starts. Like,
yeah. So basically 4 weeks ago, maybe even 3 weeks ago, Bisping fought GSP, George St. Pierre, for the title and lost. And he had the title. He beat Rockhold. He lost the title to GSP. It was GSP's big comeback. It was what,
GSP was 4 years off. He was one
4
of the greatest
years.
fighters of all time. His whole career, he fought at 170, which is welterweight. He bumped up for this fight 15 pounds heavier, which is huge, especially because he was already a little small for a welterweight. Like,
Yeah.
Theoretically, GSP could have probably fought 55 at one point, but he went up to 85. He was super like beefy and stocky.
He was, dude. His belly looked nice.
Yeah, he was like big, and then
Yeah.
Bisping is big for an 85er, so it was like Bisping had a massive size advantage over him, and Bisping's the champion. They're both.
He did have
you
the
know,
size, but GSP, like he looked like Honey I Shrunk Roy Nelson.
Yeah,
He had
GSP
just a big stomach.
It was like one of those muscle bellies,
Yeah.
like the muscle. Like
That's
the
what I dream
big
about that
gut
I have.
abs.
That one day I'm gonna wake up still with my gut, but then there's just magically abs on the
It's
gut.
gonna be solid rock.
Yeah, I don't get. That's amazing.
Yeah. What's his fucking Rumble kind of has that too.
Well, I wish he would fight again, but he's in the weed business now.
I know. That's
He opened a
but-
dispensary. Stop fighting.
Wow.
Opened a dispensary. But yeah, back to so Bisping loses to GSP. He catches a few elbows. Ultimately, he got choked out.
Choked unconscious. He didn't even tap.
But then
completely.
after a fight, the UFC or USA or who the governing body usually puts a fighter on suspension, not for any reason other than just to nurse their injuries. I'm pretty sure GSP got like a 40 to 60 day layoff.
Yeah.
But then somehow Bisping got a fight 3 weeks later, and he fought this past Saturday.
Wasn't it because it was in Shanghai?
Yeah, he fought in Shanghai.
Against Kelvin Gastelum, who's one of the best guys at 85. I mean, he's originally a 170er.
Yeah, missed weight about 4 times.
Yeah, he's Mexican. He loves to eat like these authentic Mexican dinners. He's kind of like, but he's like a beast, and he's young too, and just completely like up and coming. Keeps getting better and better.
He hit Bisping so hard that before he fell, Bisping actually lifted in the air a little.
Dude, and it was one of those like blink of an eye, like as soon as his hand touched Bisping's chin, Bisping immediately fell like a ton of bricks. Like,
yeah.
It's just, Gastelum's hands are so fast that like he's got that kind of like almost one. As soon as he touches you, you're down.
It was I didn't watch it live, I will admit, because there's no amount of cocaine in the world that lets me get up at 8 in the morning, because it was in Shanghai, so it was a very early fight.
No, it was super early.
So by the time I woke up, I had already seen the video of what had happened. But either way, it's like he's not retiring. From what I hear, they're doing UFC's doing a fight in March in London.
Yeah.
And he's gonna do his last fight there and retire there because he's from the UK.
No, that'd be great. And I mean,
he should go out on a win, but
doesn't Party wants him to fight an easier opponent so he can go out and win in his home country.
Yeah, kind of like a homecoming game.
Yeah,
like when the big college football team plays like a D1A school and just annihilates them.
Because it was rough to see Cowboy lose to Masvidal in Denver. That was after all that shit talk. Remember that? And then Masvidal after comes up
in
to
Denver.
him and goes,
yeah.
Masvidal said out loud. He just you saw him like you could read his lips. He just said, "You know what happened." Right after he like knocked him out, he goes, "You know what happened."
The thing that stands out to me most about the UFC Denver fight night was how ugly the poster was. I don't know. I remember just roasting it on Twitter. It was the worst graphically designed poster.
Yeah.
I guess that's the anal retentiveness of me. I don't know what that word means, but it sounds right, and I hope it means nothing else. But so, yeah, I mean, the cool thing, I mean, even though Bisping lost, it's kind of like a warrior move to go out 3 weeks after getting choked out.
Yeah, and that's why you love
he's
Bisping.
old, man. I mean, he was fighting. I mean, he has a great career, but he had it tough. He was fighting Vitor Belfort when he was juiced up and basically disconnected his eye.
He took one of the nastiest knockouts in UFC history against Henderson.
Yeah.
He won the championship on 2 weeks' notice, like he took the Gastelum fight against Rockhold, which is insane. And it's like that's why we love Bisping, is because he's such a brawler.
Didn't he have that crazy scrap last year with Hendo?
It was an amazing fight.
Yeah,
And
the
he
one.
beat Henderson.
Yeah,
It was
that was a crazy fight.
Yeah, it's like Henderson's last fight.
Yeah.
But Henderson still was great in it. But it's like dude. Bisping's a monster, and he's got that, and his eyes all fucked up. He's just like this old school fucking English like brawler. Like, you
and he is also a podcaster.
Yeah, he's a shout out to what's their podcast called?
Way to put me on the spot.
Gomez. It's great. We don't.
It's
know
one
the
of
name,
Louis J. Gomez's podcasts.
Yeah, but no, man, that was. What do you think? Like, there should be some type of they should be stricter about not letting guys fight a certain amount of times a year on such short notice, because it seems like Cowboy's kind of getting gassed in his fights and losing.
Well, I know with the Bisping thing, a lot of people on Twitter were kind of like just saying as his team and his friends kind of as a whole failed on this one. Not because, not that he wasn't ready, but I mean, turning around on 3 weeks' notice after getting choked out is I think he should have had more time, but someone needed to fill in for the fight, and he was ready.
Yeah, and I mean,
he was already in fighting shape.
He's known for that. It's just like you're almost watching these great fighters not fight at their full potential because they're fighting so often or fighting back to back, in such a short amount of time. Like Cowboy was the most insane.
He
has the potential to be one of the best fighters on the planet, but he just fights like 4 times.
He would win a
5
fight,
times a year.
and then in his post-fight press conference, he'd be like, "So that card next week, are there any openings?"
Yeah,
he was just always willing to go again. But it's hard to prove if that does hinder their performance, but it's got to be tough because a lot of these people put in months into their fight camp.
Yeah, a full fight camp is what, 4 months, 3-4 months.
Yeah, it's pretty long, and there's a certain amount of technique, and you study the opponent. I mean, how quickly could you study an opponent in 3 weeks?
Totally, and even if you fight only 3 times a year, like technically for a full fight camp, that's like full back to back to back. You're not really.
Yeah, I think most fighters aim like for 4 a year. Yeah. But then you got some of the younger guys who go more than that because they have to stay relevant.
Totally.
Because it is the thing I learned when I was training Muay Thai at the institute was that comedy and mixed martial arts, especially the amateurs, there's like a weird correlation between the two where like people don't even see how much work you put into it on a daily basis. They only see the final product, whether it's a fight or you're doing a set at a club.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's weird because it's one of those things where most of the work you're putting in is not being seen by anybody.
Yeah, totally.
Most people who don't know MMA probably have no idea how long a fight camp is, how much time goes into it.
Yeah.
And these guys, like, so I think, and it's funny because a lot of UFC fighters, I've learned over the years, like coming out to comedy shows. And there's a large amount of comedians who are MMA fans.
Yeah.
Because there's some mutual respect. I mean, obviously, they're much tougher than us, so I can't compare what we do.
No.
We go to battle in a much different way where all we have to use is our words.
Not at all. No comedian that we've ever met has the balls of like the biggest pussy in MMA.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Although, have you ever had like a bad set and you're like, I have to get up in 5 minutes and do another set?
No, totally.
It's like,
yeah, that's the immediate feeling.
Yes, I think there's definitely similarities between the two, which will be interesting to talk to fighters when they come on about it.
The biggest one, they're so based in individuality, so it's just you.
Yeah, that's what I love. If you fuck up, it's on you.
Yeah, exactly. It's very high risk, high reward. It's very about like.
And they don't even have the luxury to be like, that was a bad crowd. They didn't get me.
Yeah,
I was ahead of my time. It's literally all on you. At least we could be ignorant and blame the crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I don't know. The Bisping thing is Bisping's great. Hopefully he does that last fight in England. That'd be awesome.
Hopefully he wins too.
Yeah, I'm rooting for Bisping in that. I love him, man. The shit, as much as like we were talking about, like the shit talking is good, but it's cool to see them finish at the end. Like
he's always been a guy who has talked shit and ended up respecting his opponent usually.
Totally, and the only one where it really didn't happen was Rockhold, but they had a ton of beef.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to not like Rockhold.
Yeah, that's a pretty common thing. Because he's beautiful.
I think the big question is we want McGregor back.
Yeah, totally. I mean, what's so great about McGregor and Bisping, as far as like, there's a lot of guys that talk shit, but when you're actually, they're witty almost in the way that like a comic is witty. Like they're funny. Bisping's funny.
They're funny, and like when they start winning, it comes so quick. Look at McGregor. I mean, I remember the time when he wasn't posting Instagram pictures of him and his yacht.
Yeah,
it happened like that. He became two-time double champion. Next thing you know, he fights Mayweather. He's got a yacht.
Did you guys see his suit with
the fuck you suit? Yeah, that's the classic.
That's my MMA little.
Yeah, if I ever get a late night set, I'm gonna wear a fuck you suit.
Fuck you suit.
Where mine would actually just say thank you so much for booking me suit. Thank you so much, bookers. I think people. It's funny because I was so against. At first, when right after he fought Diaz the second time, I was like, this is it. One person won one person won the other. It's good, but now I can't see any other comeback besides the trilogy.
Do you think
I want to see the trilogy?
He's gonna fight Ferguson.
That's a good fight.
Yeah, it'll be amazing. It's not. It doesn't draw the way the
No, I always wanted to see McGregor and Khabib.
Yeah, that's.
But Khabib can't make his way through a fight camp ever.
No, I mean he almost died. That was insane.
Yeah, that is
true.
true.
His liver shut down.
Yeah, well, that's we could do a whole nother episode on weight cutting.
Yeah, we'll get into that eventually. We'll get some time.
It's funny because I'm gonna disguise it when we bring in UFC fighters as me being concerned for their weight cut, but it's really just gonna be me asking them questions like, how could I drop 20 in a week?
What do you think about? What do you think about fucking Diaz and Woodley? Because that's what they're saying.
Yeah, and then it's weird because then Woodley called out that Diaz didn't sign the contract, but that doesn't sound like something Diaz would do.
No.
Unless it's a money thing. But Diaz would never shy away from a fight.
He wouldn't shy away from a fight, but he is demanding a certain amount of money now because he knows. But the Diaz brothers have a huge following, so even though when he fought McGregor was drawing more pay-per-view dollars than Diaz was. Diaz knows his worth. So
yeah, and if they do the trilogy, that'll be the big draw.
Be
I mean, right now, unless they do like a different type of super fight. I mean, there's been rumors GSP McGregor.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think I'd still rather see the trilogy first.
Yeah, because that second one was one of the best fights of all time.
And it's fun to put money on big fights and win podcast equipment.
Yeah. Well, either Conor McGregor or Nate Diaz is going to be.
Oh, I got a good idea for the podcast. Every time we hit like the 10-minute mark, Austin dresses up like a ring card girl and has to do different rounds.
What if we just got another tech person and we made you the ring card girl?
What if you block me off of the entire podcast?
Austin, tech bitch and ring card girl.
Yeah, we're just strangling him with a bow tie. Going, do you like?
It honestly wouldn't be the worst gig I've had to do.
We're in the NYU dorms. There's got to be some ring card girls.
Nah, bro, this was.
Is that a major here?
Ring card girl.
Yeah. I'm majoring in ring card girl at the Tisch School of Arts. All right, I
First,
think.
you know the name. That's actually kind of.
Well, you know what? I was a college student at one point. It didn't last long. I was a college baseball player for one game.
I didn't last in college. And I didn't even play baseball, so you got me beat.
I could have lasted. I just started doing. Well, this is a whole rant of a story.
Yeah. But do you want to? Well, we got Holloway Aldo.
Yeah, what is that? December 2nd, I think.
Yeah, UFC 218. They're
This
doing
is
a rematch instead because Frankie Edgar.
I personally think Holloway will win.
Yeah, I agree.
It'll be fun to watch. I think Alistair Overeem, I'd put money on him. I'm a big fan of him. Although the guy Francis is a pretty badass fighter.
Ngannou's amazing.
Yeah.
Ngannou's this most physically. That might be just a battle of the two scariest looking guys. Aside from Brock Lesnar, Ngannou and Alistair Overeem.
Yeah.
They might be the two most intimidating looking UFC fighters that there are.
Lesnar was so intimidating. I remember my research for this podcast this week was I went back and played UFC 3 Undisputed on Xbox 360 for 3 days straight. And I just remembered how easy it was to win with Brock Lesnar. He was the one guy in the game you could just run out and throw. He had that straight right, and you would just knock people out right away.
Oh, that was great.
That was such a good game.
Totally.
Maybe
I think I had the first one. What was it? Just UFC Undisputed?
That first one, I mean, we're going back like 12 years now. This is a podcast traveled in time. That wasn't possible because that was one of the few video games you actually had to put work into.
Yeah.
Like in the other ones, you could just simulate your training and still be a decent fighter.
Yeah, no, you had
In
to,
that
like,
one, you had to work. It
throw
was like,
punches in the gym and shit
I was like,
that.
I tried
Big
doing a
pads.
joke, but on stage once, it was similar to the game Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yeah, we
Like
had
you'd
to-
play it when you're 8 years old. And then then you just own an amusement park now. And then also you have to build a roller coaster. And you'd be like, this roller coaster is sick. And then you would look at the stats and be like, too much -0 G gravity. And you'd be like, dude, I'm 9. I don't know what any of this is. Why aren't they going on my roller coaster? I can't have video games with work in it.
Oh, yeah, you
Welcome to Keeping It Roller Coaster Tycoon with Dan, Luke, and Austin. I feel like that's a good introduction episode, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Do we have any plugs? Like famous people do on podcasts?
Famous people? I don't know.
Yeah,
We
what do
should
you
get
wanna
famous
plug?
people on.
You have any
I'm
Twitter?
on Twitter at Austin Locked Up.
You can't
Friday-
tag him in pictures, though. Sorry, folks.
You can't tag me. Yeah, it's a shame. Friday I'm at Broadway.
Well, this isn't
Something.
going to come out by then, I assume. So, plug into the future.
Well, that's like 5 days. I feel like I can edit this in 5 days.
At Luke Touma on Twitter, LUKETOUMA, and at Luke.Touma on Instagram.
Wow,
and,
fancy.
Lucky Jacks every Wednesday, 9 o'clock if in the Lower East.
Don't you have a show at the comic strip, too?
Yeah, I got a monthly show at the comic strip, but the dates are
Gotcha.
sporadic, and this is not going to be out in 2 days, huh?
I am Dan Lamort at Dan Lamort on Twitter, danlamort.com, LAMORTE. What do I have? December 27th, headlining Caroline's. None of you will probably come to that. And Atlanta in January, Relapse Theater, January something and something, 26, 27, something like that.
Yeah, when's this coming out?
Soon. I just plug into the future, baby.
Yeah, all right. Well,
Relapse, dude, that's too perfect of a name for you to be headlining.
Why? I've
I'm
never
also
relapsed. I've
doing,
always been not sober.
I'm also doing.
All right, we're going back to Luke's plugs now.
Yeah, wow, okay.
I was like, oh, well, I'll just plug for the next couple days. But then you said December 27th, and I was like, I
Yeah.
should do.
Also, in August of 2018, me and Luke will be at Nick's Comedy Stop
That's
together.
it. August, what is it? Last weekend of August 2018.
I have no idea.
Mark it down in your calendar.
We actually are in Boston on that date.
You guys planned that far ahead?
I'm a professional. I book far
are you,
ahead.
though?
Come on now.
We have booked stay for like.
I got sponsored by Bubba Coos Burritos. Yeah, last words. Thank you to Bubba Coos for your Buffalo Tots.
Thank you to MiddleEasy for.
Oh,
letting
yeah.
us
I
do
should
this.
say MiddleEasy more than anything. This is their name.
Thank you to NYU.
And guys, this is the first episode, so bear with us. We'll have guests, and you won't have to hear us as much.
Yeah, no more.
And
Austin,
especially a
so-
lot less of Austin and bow
Yeah,
ties.
much less Austin.
Much,
Yeah.
much less Austin.
All right.
I'm excited for that part, honestly. That'll be great.
Okay, we're good.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.